What up, boys, and welcome on in. Today's guide is obviously about the Kiss of Frost, the Ice Advent side story, whatever it's called. This is actually a rerun from last year, and that's going to be important in just a second. But we're going to mainly first start on clearing Epic Hell, okay? I went through a ton of different builds, full auto, looking at previous guides from last year, because I actually ended up doing my own thing. I didn't make a guide, so this time around, I definitely wanted to help y'all out. And I think I came up with the best and most flexible, maybe easiest to access method of farming this. It's not full auto. You will have to manual a few portions, but I do think it's going to give you the most flexibility, as some of the other guides y'all might watch sort of involve having like some insane gear and cleaving the boss, ignoring some of the mechanics. I think this is going to be the easiest method, in my opinion, that I found. Other than that, boys, keep in mind, if you can't clear Epic Hell even after watching this guide, don't feel bad at all. You're going to miss out on a few things in the shop, but it's not a big deal. And even some veterans, maybe y'all don't want to end up clearing Epic Hell because it's too much of a headache. If you can just do hard, if you can just only do Hell, that's perfectly fine. You can full auto those and get most of the stuff in the shop. We'll cover that at the end. Now, the reason I keep mentioning this is a rerun, there's one very important thing, guys, and that is these advents are actually very nice for farming sub gems. So I want y'all to take note in the shop here. Look at what the selection chests are: pen set, injury, life steal, destruction, health set, and unity. And that actually perfectly lines up here with the drop table. Okay, so that's when you look at the shop, that's exactly what can drop from the boss. So if you wanted to farm these sub gems, this is the loot table for those gems. The reason I bring that up is from last year, guys, just so I can show y'all proof. Smilegate actually ended up changing the loot table, and this time around we don't have speed set and we don't have counter set. Attack set, not really that big of a deal, but in my opinion, right, guys, speed set for a lot of players and even counter set are much better than the current loot table. So just keep that in mind, that they did make a big difference, and maybe you don't want to farm as much as, you know, last year's. You'll have to wait for sub gems or speed sub gems to roll around again. With that being said, let's go ahead and start. We'll start with Epic Hell. I'll give you guys my method, talk about all the builds, and then we'll talk about Hell mode and normal mode, or hard mode, I should say. Alrighty, boys, before I show y'all some footage from the Epic Hell clear and we talk about that in depth, the guide, I want to quickly go over some notes. Number one being, as soon as she pops up here, just make sure all your debuffers, the defense breakers, whatever you might end up bringing, because I'm going to go over the flexibility and, you know, talk about different units, because y'all may not have all the units I have available. We'll go over all that. Make sure you have at least 85 effectiveness. Why 85? Of course, boys, because there's 15% innate effect resist in this game. It's so annoying, but it is what it is. So if you have 85 at least, you are capped. You have the highest potential versus Elisia to debuff defense breaker. The other thing that I want to take note of, boys, and we'll talk about it in their respective phases more in depth, but we're going to focus on removing both the protection of mana and the battle mana, where other guides will just try to speed past it. You can bypass it easily, guys. I shouldn't say easily, but you can bypass it. But the main thing is you'll need some insane gear, some specific units. And I think for these kind of guides, especially for Epic Hell, I'm trying to cater to y'all that are having difficulty, and you may not have like all the gear accessible, insanely cracked gear, or all the units. So this removing these buffs should give you guys more flexibility and more ease of access with less gear, etc., in terms of clearing it. Okay, let's pull up the footage. Before I do, let's talk about battle mana, as this is the first. This happens in phase 1. We need to clear this, and the way we do that, go ahead and read along as I talk about it. We're going to need to hit the boss with 5 not just AoE, but it has to be an attack that targets all allies, okay? So make sure, like Vildred, for example, skill 1 hits 2 targets. It has to be a skill that hits all targets. So Vildred's skill 2 and his skill 3, Bellion's, all of Bellion's skills, and then Vivian's skill 2, for example, okay? So we need to hit the boss when all the ads are dead. That's a common misconception, is just hitting the boss 5 times with AoE. No, all the ads have to be dead, and then you have to hit the boss 5 times. It's not as difficult as it sounds, as long as you bring the right units, okay? So let's pull up the footage here real quick and go over it. So as you watch, guys, you're gonna see the sword disappear, and let's go ahead and talk about the comp right now. So I'm using Bellion, Vildred, and Bellion. Guys, Bellion is actually not a good one here. I just don't have green Bellona. You could also use other units, like I bet you even Fire Euphine, what is her name, Summer Euphine, could actually work. You just need a unit that provides a lot of AoE and have attack up in your squad to make things a little bit smoother. Okay, so right now my team kind of is just we're cleaving down Vivian, guys. All you should have access to Vivian. A lot of y'all probably should have access to Vildred, as he's, you know, an OG unit that's not super rare. And then remember, the Bellion slot can be filled with almost anyone, just depending on what, you know, suits your needs. We'll cover that more in depth in just a second. But as you guys can see here, I want to pause something. Bellion actually procs a second skill here, guys. And take note, Battle Mana Dispelled X3, okay? Battle Mana was the sword. And as soon as we hit 5 times, right, because we're hitting her with continuous attacks that hit all targets, we're getting that battle mana dispelled stacked up. We need to hit that 5 times. And as soon as we hit 5 times, you'll see that sword disappear. Okay, so see, this doesn't give a stack, but Vivian also will not give a stack because that's a single target. Belling's last hit here will be the 5th one. Battle mana is spelled X5, and that sword is now gone. Okay, the reason that's important is the sword actually provides so much damage. If you don't end up taking that off, you better kill the boss fast, because if she hits you, she is oftentimes one-shotting your squad. So I think it's very easy to do. Just make sure, so the main units, guys, if you want to bring Earth Synergy, Vildred, Vivian, Green Bellona is actually the best in slot here over Bellion. But just bring any AoE. Make sure you have attack up. So Vivian, all you should have from the Hun event. She provides AoE plus attack up, so she's definitely a good slot. If you don't have Vivian or don't want to use her, things like General Purgus, anything with an AoE that provides also attack up can be good. Green Charles maybe. Just make sure you have enough AoE. 2 units that have a ton of AoE. Dizzy and Holiday Fiend can work as well. But this is the squad I ended up choosing, okay? All right, so with that being done, this is full auto, phase 1. This is by far the easiest phase. We finished our goal, which was removing that sword, the battle mana effect that gives the boss, I think, full defense pen. It'll end up one-shotting your units if you don't take it out, okay? So this is one of the first step on making an easier clear, in my opinion. So we'll go ahead and fast forward here, boys, so we can save some time. This is full auto, so we end up just clearing it. As soon as we get to this phase, she's going to push us into phase 2. Okay. Before we talk about phase 2, let's go back into my main game and let's look at the other effect, the protection mana. Now, this is the one I think a lot of players end up skipping because this phase can be a little bit difficult if you don't have Rowana. But we'll talk about that in just a second. So the boss actually gets a crazy amount of damage reduction if this stays up. And the way you remove it is by hitting the mob. The mob, it's like a Yeti. 6 times with single target attacks. Okay, so let's go back to the footage. This is the Yeti. We need to hit this this dingus 6 times with single target attacks to remove the shield. Okay, while this goes through, you're gonna see me, instead of full autoing, I'm going to focus it down with some units. Sometimes I'll hit it with Sid, I'll hit it with Rowana, I'll hit it where I can, depending on what you guys have access to. You're gonna your order of operations might differ slightly, but overall the goal is here, boys, is to remove the shield from Elisia the Ice by hitting the Yeti 6 times and surviving. Okay, so Rowana is huge here, boys. Hopefully a lot of y'all pulled Rowana, as I've been suggesting y'all to get her. In case you don't have her, I think Destina or another healer can keep your team alive. There just might be more RNG involved, and if you really can't clear it without Rowana, boys, you might have to just leave up the shield and cleave down the boss in a quicker method. But hopefully you guys have Rowana. Hopefully Destina works, or another sustain unit. Charles is actually subpar here. Any other unit can work in that spot. I think Elisia is even better. I think Senya works just fine. You could also maybe try units like Falcon or Clury if you want even more defense break. I just have him because of his chance to hit multiple times. I was just testing out stuff. He's really not good here. This is just kind of highlighting that you can sort of just use whatever you have access to, as long as they sort of fulfill the agenda, right? Meaning I want to make sure I hit the boss 6 times, the mini boss 6 times, while also pushing Elisia the Ice into her next phase before we take too much damage overall. Okay, so as you all saw there, I was just checking the skill order on what's going to be happening here. We have defense break from Sid. We're continually hitting him down. The shield is still active, so I do need to hit the boss a few more times. Let's see here. This is protection dispel. I think oh, there we go. That was actually the final hit from Rowana there. So once that is achieved, boys, hopefully you are maintaining your health. This is why Rowana is so good here. Sometimes RNG will happen and your unit can die. But overall, the shield is gone. Now we just focus down and push the boss into phase 3. Now, before we go into phase 3, let's talk about a few other changes. So I talked about the Rowana spot. Charles you can use a lot of different units here. If you want to tack up, if you're going for a more offensive route, maybe even skipping the defense dispel, you can just use an offensive unit here, Falcon or Clury for defense breaks. I was talking about, I think Elisia is super, super good here. Helga, especially change Helga, which all y'all should have access to, is one of the best units you can use in this spot, as she has defense break and attack up, and I think CR push. So just use Helga, use Elisia. Anything is better than Charles here. And Sid, being a 4-star, is super good, but any unit that does a ton of damage can work in his spot. He's just really good because he does tons of damage and provides defense break as well. So he fulfills similar 2 roles essentially in one. Okay, now guys, with both of the effects being removed, this is the easiest part of the match. Now a lot of people this is where they struggle the most, but that's because they're not removing that 50% damage reduction, and they're trying to just ham fist the boss by just overkilling it with tons and tons of gear and builds. I'm going to show y'all something here. I'm actually overkilling the boss by so much, you guys can get away with less cigarette gear. And remember, I'll put all of my gear in the description below. I can actually two-man this, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So we have Flan and Cigarette. And Cigarette is actually Grace of Growth, so she's not even max Mola. Grace of Growth, as y'all should know, doesn't max out the skill 1 Mola Gora, so she's actually missing a ton of damage here. But, of course, we use Flan. No need for any books or anything like that, boys, because the first 2 phases provide us with a ton of souls. And here, boys, here's why I can two-man this. If you guys notice, Cigarette is actually faster than the boss. She might lap me because she does have a ton of speed. So that's why Amelia's here for both insurance. But we already have attack up and crit damage up. So she's kind of overkill. Any unit can work here. If you guys want to use Ice Rose. If you even want to break up the Ice Synergy and just use like Green Lots, Oxlots, whatever it might be. Just fulfill that or use whatever you have access to. If you don't have Flan, for example, maybe you could bring a crit damage up unit or an attack up plus a CR pusher. You have a lot of flexibility here, boys, because once you remove that defensive buff, I'm going to show you how easy it is. I can even just two-man this. Amelia's kind of just extra here. We didn't really need her. Maybe we would have got lapped, but I could have just, gave Cigarette slightly more speed. So here, Cigarette, of course, we're going to soul burn the skill 2. That's going to give us an extra turn, proccing the skill 1 bonus. Then we skill 3, and with that defense break, guys, we kill her by a ton. So Amelia definitely not needed here. If you guys don't have access to Flan or if your gear is lacking, maybe replace Amelia with another damage dealer. Some people were using Karen. Some people can use Luna, Kisei, whatever it might be. Everybody will have access, though, to Cigarette. And I'm showing you guys here, you can just Grace of Growth her. No need for that Mola. No need for, if you guys can't match the gear in my description, that's okay, too. As I'm 100% overkilling here, we can actually make a lot of sacrifices, okay? So that's Epic Hell in a nutshell, guys. Hopefully that helps y'all out a little bit. Let's go ahead and wrap up and talk about the Auto Hell and then the shop. Okay, so that was Epic Hell. Let's go back into the game, start wrapping things up. I'll go and talk about Auto Hell mode builds, and y'all can equate that to hard mode builds. Maybe I'll help you guys, able to formulate your own teams if you don't have the exact units I'm talking about. But real quickly, guys, no matter what, don't get discouraged. This is a super difficult content. All of you watching, though, should be able to clear out hard mode, and a lot of y'all can comfortably Auto Hell mode. So let's talk about the differences. If you can't clear Epic Hell, or if you can't be bothered, don't sweat it, guys. You can still pick up 10 of the White Snake Fangs, which is the Epic Hell currency, and you'll still be able to get the Dark Connection, the Emerald bookmarks, which, in my opinion, are the most important, as this is the only way to get them so far in the game. You can still get these even if you can't clear Epic Hell. You just won't be able to get all of these subgem boxes, okay? You'll be able to get, I think, 1 box alongside the Dark Connection. So just pick and choose, probably Destruction or Pen Set, and it's not that big of a deal. Make sure you finish this, clear out the shop no matter what, okay? Let's go ahead and talk about the Auto Hell mode builds. Alright, guys, so I changed up things quite a bit from our Epic Hell clear, just so we can talk about variants, and I'll help you guys team build in case you don't have exactly, what I'm using here or in my Epic Hell build. As long as you guys understand what the boss is, what we need for each phase, then you can kind of just flex whatever you have access to. Alright, so we kept Vivian because all y'all should have Vivian. She's a free-to-play goddess, right? We get her from the hunt mode now, and she does everything we want, tons of AoE and attack up. Essentially, in phase 1 in Hell mode, non-Epic Hell mode, all we need to make sure is just we have enough wave clear to continue to clear out those annoying trash mobs and then just nuke down the boss as fast as possible, okay? So I just put in Senya as a front line as she has an AoE S3. She'll help Vivian and Villager clear a little bit faster, and I don't know, she just looks good. You really, guys, if your gear is up to snuff, if you have decent gear, you can kind of just throw in whatever. Just make sure every unit has AoE, and kind of like Epic Hell, even though it's less important, make sure they have, multiple AoEs. If you bring 3 units that only have like a long turn cooldown, skill 3, attack all target, it could get a little bit, slow. Okay, so that was fast. Let's move on to the next phase, boys. I took out the Rowana, since some of y'all may not have access to her. I kept in Sid just because he's a awesome DPS. He's 4-star, super accessible, and I threw in Elisia, which I mentioned I think is way better than Charles. Even for Epic Hell. So if you have Elisia, don't copy me on the Charles. I was just testing it out and showing y'all you can get away with some subpar units. We have actually 3 defense breakers here, guys. There is RNG, as y'all can see there. Sid got stunned, which is really bad. That's going to slow down our run quite a bit. But overall, hard mode, Hell mode compared to Epic Hell, even on full auto, is still super, super easy. Even on full RNG, or even with bad RNG, I should say. So, just bring what you have. Make sure you have a strong single target nuker. Bring as much defense breaks as possible. And that's about it, guys. Remember, too, if you can get your Sid and Elisia on higher effectiveness, remember, Elisia has Mind's Eye. She doesn't need as much. but you want some effectiveness in hard mode. We need at least 60, right, to land those more consistent defense breaks. But this was a bad RNG run. But as y'all can see here, even with Sid getting stunned, we still complete it pretty successfully. Now, the last phase, guys, I'm flexing a little bit here as this is one of the auto epic hell teams I was running, so they're already geared up. Of course, if you don't have these ML4s and ML5s, you don't need them, guys. Just in my opinion, right, bring a ton of nuke, either with defense break or without, and make sure you guys use that synergy. So if you can, phase 3 gives attack percent, right? 40% if you have all 3 units. So try to just bring, you know, Kisei, Sigret, or Kisei Luna, plus Flan, any other defense breaker, attack up, Karen. If you guys have ice or light units, you can just use this squad here. Just use the synergies, bring as much nuke as possible. Now that we don't have to worry about the debuffs, this is much, much easier as well. You don't have to one round the boss either, like I did there. Just in case you wanted to farm sub gems, I'm showing y'all what you can do with this squad. And this squad can actually do epic hell as well, but it takes some insane gear. I didn't want to bother. All right, guys, hopefully that helps out. Hard mode is even easier, boys. Bring AoE on phase 1. Make sure you use your synergies on all 3 phases. Bring defense breaks and make sure you have them effectiveness capped. And that's about it, okay? Remember, you don't need to do epic hell, but hopefully this did help you guys out. Leave me any comments you want if you need additional questions or advice. And thank you so much, as always, for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.